There's a moment you never forget, not because it was loud, but because it was silent. They didn't scream, they didn't storm off, they just slowly stopped showing up in ways that once felt certain. The texts became shorter, the voice softer, the energy colder. You told yourself not to overthink it. Maybe they were just tired, distracted, going through something. But deep down, something in you knew they were already halfway out the door. It's a quiet kind of heartbreak, the kind where nothing is said, so nothing is closed. The door stays open, but they don't walk through it anymore. You start giving more to compensate. Longer messages, softer words, a version of yourself that tries to be easier to love, but it doesn't work. And that's what hurts the most. You weren't just loving them, you were pleading with your presence. If you're listening to this, maybe you're there right now, sitting with the ache of not knowing where you stand, replaying every conversation, trying to find the moment you lost them, asking yourself why it still hurts when they didn't even say goodbye. But here's the truth. This pain doesn't mean you failed. It means you felt. And there's power in that, if you know where to place it next. This is the beginning of that shift, the beginning of your return to self. Because while they were pulling away, they weren't just disconnecting from you. They were creating space. Space you can now reclaim, not with noise, not with anger, but with clarity, self-respect, and silence that doesn't chase. So let's begin this journey not with revenge, but with awareness. Not with grief, but with grounding. Not with fear, but with the kind of strength that grows when no one's watching. Because the moment they pulled away might feel like an ending, but it can also be the beginning of your most powerful chapter. Part 1. When silence speaks louder than words. There's a reason silence feels so piercing, because the human brain is wired to seek closure, and when it doesn't get it, it fills in the blanks. You begin to write your own painful story. Maybe I was too much. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe they found someone else. Your mind becomes a movie projector for a story that may not even be true. That uncertainty becomes torture. It steals your sleep. It tightens your chest. And worst of all, it hijacks your sense of self. You start walking on emotional eggshells, hoping your next message, your next gesture, your next version of you will bring them back. But people don't come back because you shrink. And that's why silence, yours, not theirs, becomes your most powerful tool. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It's space. Space for you to observe what they do when you stop performing. When you stop chasing, when you stop trying to keep the story alive. Silence is not about ignoring, it's about informing. It sends a message without noise. I've noticed the change, I'm not angry, I'm aware, and I will not beg to stay in someone's life if I'm no longer invited. In that quiet, two things happen. They either step forward with clarity, or they continue to drift. Either way, you have your answer. You no longer live in limbo because you've stopped asking someone else to define your worth. This is what the Stoics understood, that peace isn't about getting what you want, but wanting what you have power over. And sometimes the greatest power is restraint, the decision not to react, not to explain, not to chase someone who only half shows up. There's a dignity in disappearing quietly, in pulling your energy back without fanfare, in letting your absence speak where your words no longer feel heard. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally do for yourself. You'll be surprised how loudly your silence echoes, how it makes them stop scrolling, how it interrupts their comfort, because the person who used to always be there isn't anymore. And that shift, it's unforgettable. But don't go silent to be missed. Go silent to find peace. Because if your presence didn't inspire them to appreciate you, let your absence teach them what they took for granted. That is when silence becomes sacred. That is when it becomes strength. Part 2. Emotional detachment is a superpower. Emotional detachment isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling with boundaries. It's about holding space for your emotions without letting them rule your actions. We've been taught that love means giving all of ourselves, surrendering our peace for the sake of the connection. But that's not love. That's emotional bankruptcy with a romantic label. When someone begins to fade from your life, your instinct is to hold tighter, to give more. But detachment is the art of releasing while still caring. It says, I see what's happening, I feel it, and I choose to protect my peace even if it costs me closeness. This is not avoidance, it's emotional maturity. And it's how you begin to stop bleeding for people who never asked you to heal in the first place. Stoicism teaches us that what is outside our control is not worthy of our distress. People's choices, people's feelings, their comings and goings, they belong to them. What belongs to you is your response, your energy, your time. Emotional detachment means reclaiming that energy and refusing to leak it into uncertainty. When you practice detachment, you don't become cold, you become calm. You can still miss them, but you don't chase. You can still love them, but you don't beg. And most importantly, you can still hope, but not at the cost of your self-worth. This type of strength isn't built overnight. It comes in the small moments. When you don't check your phone, when you don't send that last message, when you sit with discomfort instead of reaching for their reassurance. That's how resilience is formed. One quiet decision at a time. Emotional detachment allows you to hold space for love and logic at once. It lets you say, yes, I care about you, but I will not lose myself trying to hold on to someone who's already let go of me. And in that clarity, in that self-respecting distance, something beautiful happens. You begin to attract people who don't need to be chased. You begin to see that losing someone who made you abandon yourself was never truly a loss. It was a redirection, back to your center. So when you feel the ache rising, when the urge to fix or prove or beg begins to surface, pause, breathe. Remember, the calmest person in the room is always the most powerful. And the most powerful version of you doesn't fight to be chosen. She chooses herself. Part 3. Confidence is magnetic. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It walks into a room and doesn't ask, will they like me? Instead, it asks, do I like who I'm being right now? That shift in focus changes everything, because real confidence doesn't come from being desired. It comes from being grounded in who you are, even if no one is watching. We often mistake confidence for bravado, raised voices, firm handshakes, oversized gestures. But the most magnetic confidence is the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't try to impress. It simply exists, like gravity. You feel it when someone holds eye contact without fear, when they speak slowly without rushing to fill silence, when they're not afraid to walk away from what doesn't align. Stoic philosophy aligns deeply with this kind of internal stability. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, that's confidence. Not arrogance, not recklessness, but peace. The kind that says, I know who I am, and I won't apologize for it." Women, like all people, are deeply attuned to the energy of certainty. It's not about control, it's about presence. When you walk into a space owning your flaws, your past, your dreams, you become someone who is real, not rehearsed. And in a world full of noise, realness is rare. Confidence isn't the absence of insecurity. It's the decision to not let insecurity run the show. It's choosing not to spiral when ignored, not to crumble when misunderstood. It's choosing composure over chaos, grace over reaction. And here's the truth. Confident people don't need to prove anything. That's what makes them so magnetic. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they react. And they know that validation isn't a currency they chase, it's something they generate from within. So if you're trying to be more attractive, don't start with your looks, start with your internal posture. Ask yourself, do I like how I show up when no one claps? Do I respect my own opinion of me? Because the moment you do, others will feel it too. Confidence whispers. and yet somehow it's the loudest presence in the room. Part 4. Ambition draws her in. There's something undeniably attractive about a person with purpose, not just busy for the sake of being busy, but genuinely building something. When you speak about your goals with fire in your eyes and calm in your voice, it tells the world, and her, that your life is already moving forward, with or without approval. Ambition isn't about money or status, it's about movement. It's about waking up every day with a sense of direction. That forward energy is magnetic, not because it promises success, but because it inspires belief. When a woman sees that you are driven by something bigger than attention, she feels safe leaning into your presence, because direction is security. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that we must align our actions with our values, to live not reactively but intentionally. And ambition, when rooted in values and discipline, becomes an anchor, not just for your identity, but for the relationships around you. Here's a truth most won't admit. Many people are drawn to potential, but they stay for progress. They stay when they see you showing up, even on the days when motivation runs thin. They stay when your consistency proves that your life isn't just an idea, it's a reality being built, one brick at a time. This kind of ambition isn't showy. It doesn't need to be. It's in the way you structure your day, in the way you say no to distractions, in the way you keep your word to others and to yourself. That's where respect is born. And here's the deeper layer. Ambition gives your love direction. Without it, even the deepest connection loses momentum. Because love alone can't carry the weight of a stagnant life. But when your passion for her is mirrored by your passion for life, the relationship breathes with meaning. So no, you don't need to be rich, you don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to be moving, even slowly, even imperfectly, because a man who is going somewhere gives her something to believe in. In the end, ambition isn't about building empires, it's about building character. And that kind of depth, that's what she remembers, long after the spotlight fades. Part 5. The Bad Boy Mystery. He's not better looking, he's not more successful, but somehow the bad boy gets her attention and keeps it. Why? Because mystery activates curiosity, and curiosity fuels attraction. The bad boy doesn't offer a clear map of his intentions. He's unpredictable, a bit rebellious, and most of all, unapologetically himself. But this isn't about being disrespectful or careless. It's about emotional sovereignty. The bad boy doesn't ask for permission to be who he is. He walks through the world as if he belongs, and that boldness disrupts the usual pattern of behavior she's used to. Psychologically, women are drawn to novelty. The bad boy represents challenge and potential change. He isn't easily categorized, and that makes her want to understand him more. His presence stirs something ancient in the mind. Here is someone different, someone who might shift the story. From a Stoic perspective, the allure of the bad boy isn't in chaos, it's in the calm defiance. He doesn't seek approval, he doesn't rush to explain himself, he holds his position like a man rooted in self-worth. That stillness, that refusal to please everyone, is rare, and it's powerful. When you combine unpredictability with depth, you get magnetism. The bad boy archetype isn't about being toxic. It's about having boundaries, standards, and a life that doesn't orbit someone else's expectations. And that's refreshing in a world where most people perform for acceptance. But here's the twist. What truly sets him apart is restraint. He doesn't give all of himself up front. He lets people earn his layers. He knows his value, and he's not afraid to walk away from what doesn't honor it. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. So if you're chasing the approval of someone who only lights up for mystery, don't pretend to be someone you're not. Become someone whose life is so rich, so centered, that curiosity finds you naturally. Be the man who doesn't need to be understood in one sitting. Because when you leave space for someone to wonder, You also leave room for them to value the discovery. And that's unforgettable. Part 6. Scarcity and acknowledgement. In a world where everything is available at the swipe of a finger, scarcity creates value. What is rare, we notice. What is always available, we take for granted. That's not cynicism, it's human psychology. And when it comes to attention, the same rule applies. The more you give it freely, the less it's felt. Many men make the mistake of thinking that being ever present, always texting back fast, constantly initiating will earn her affection. But too much availability doesn't spark desire, it suffocates it. Not because women don't appreciate love, but because appreciation needs contrast. It needs the silence between notes to feel the music. When your attention is always on offer, it loses its meaning. She begins to expect it, not value it. That's when the dynamics shift. Your consistent presence turns from comforting to invisible. Your eagerness becomes noise, and worst of all, you begin to feel depleted, giving energy without receiving depth in return. Stoicism reminds us that what we give freely must come from a place of abundance, not desperation. Scarcity doesn't mean playing games. It means having standards. It means reserving your energy for what reciprocates. It means choosing where you pour yourself rather than spilling over everyone you admire. Ignored attention is not rejection, it's information. It tells you where your efforts go unnoticed. It reveals what isn't resonating. And instead of pushing harder, the Stoic choice is to pull back. Not in bitterness, but in wisdom. You redirect that energy back inward, not outward. When you stop over-delivering emotionally, you begin to realize just how magnetic your absence can be. The calls that went unreturned now feel their own silence. The messages that once waited hours now sit unread. And it's not about revenge, it's about rhythm. You move in step with those who move with you. This isn't withdrawal, it's recalibration. You teach others how to treat you by what you tolerate. If someone doesn't make room for your presence, let your absence teach them something they forgot. You were never a given. You were a gift. So hold your attention like it's sacred, because it is. When you stop giving it to those who don't value it, you begin to shine in spaces where you're actually seen. And that's where connection truly begins. Part 7. Pre-selection. Why being desired matters. Whether we like it or not, attraction doesn't happen in a vacuum. We are social creatures wired to notice what others value. When a woman sees that you are desired by others, not chased but quietly respected, subtly admired, her perception of you changes. Not because she needs validation from the crowd, but because her instincts trust social proof. Pre-selection isn't manipulation, it's biology. Women are subconsciously drawn to men who demonstrate qualities that other women recognize as attractive. It signals that you meet an unspoken standard, one based on behavior, presence, and emotional intelligence. But here's the key. It only works if it's real. Manufactured attention backfires. It's not about flaunting attention or name-dropping admirers. It's about carrying yourself with the calm confidence of someone who is already seen, someone who doesn't beg to be noticed. Pre-selection is felt in how others listen when you speak, in the warmth you carry into a room, in the quiet way people lean in even when you're not trying to impress. That energy is magnetic because it's effortless. And effortlessness is attractive. Stoicism teaches us that self-respect is silent. When you genuinely like yourself, when you hold your space without apology, people notice. And women, especially those attuned to energy, feel it deeply. That inner self-worth signals that you won't collapse under pressure or change shape to gain approval. Being desired doesn't mean being accessible. It means being valuable. And the more you focus on becoming a man of value through purpose, consistency, clarity, the less you need to seek approval. Because value, real value, doesn't shout, it simply stands. So if you want to be seen, don't perform. Evolve. Become so centered, so rooted in who you are that others can't help but notice, even in your silence. That's the essence of pre-selection. Not noise, but presence. Not need, but depth. Part 1. Masculinity and emotional strength. Masculinity isn't what the world says it is. It's not aggression, dominance, or emotional detachment. True masculinity is the quiet power to stay grounded in chaos, to be a pillar when everything else feels unstable. And nothing radiates strength more than emotional mastery. The ability to feel deeply, but not be ruled by every feeling. When a man can sit with his anger and not let it erupt, he becomes safe. When he can admit pain without becoming it, he becomes trustworthy. That kind of masculinity, one rooted in presence, discipline, and self-awarenessness, is rare and profoundly attractive. Women instinctively sense this. Emotional strength doesn't mean never crying or never doubting. It means holding those emotions with maturity. It means processing without projection. It means taking responsibility for your inner world so you don't bleed it onto others. The Stoics taught this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote about training the mind to accept what is rather than crave what isn't. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That wisdom holds today. Emotional strength is choosing your response, every time. When a woman feels you're calm, she can finally rest. Not because you've solved all her problems, but because your energy tells her she doesn't have to carry everything alone. Masculinity, in its healthiest form, provides emotional safety, not through control, but through consistency. This doesn't mean being stoic in the cold, disconnected sense. It means being able to witness your own storm without letting it flood the room. It means breathing before reacting. It means knowing that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's truth delivered with steadiness. Masculine energy stabilizes. It doesn't rush to fix or prove. It listens. It holds. It leads by example. And that kind of leadership isn't loud. It's in the way you speak when you're frustrated, in the way you pause when tempted to explode, in the way you remain present, even when everything in you wants to flee. True emotional strength is rare, not because men can't feel, but because so few are taught how to navigate what they feel. The modern world mocks the emotionally aware man while secretly craving his presence. But the woman who values depth, she sees him, she stays. So if you want to embody strength, don't chase control, cultivate clarity. Master your reactions, become a fortress of peace in a world of reactivity. That's not just attractive, that's transformational. Part 9. Charismatic leadership. Leadership isn't about commanding attention, it's about commanding respect. Not through force, but through presence. A charismatic leader doesn't need to raise his voice. His energy speaks for him, and that energy is built in silence, shaped by self-discipline, and proven through action. Charisma, contrary to popular belief, isn't about being loud or flashy. It's about alignment. When your words, actions, and values are in sync, people feel it. They may not always understand why they're drawn to you, but they are. Because alignment breeds trust, and trust builds influence. Women are especially attuned to this. When a man walks with clarity, when he carries purpose in his posture and principle in his tone, it signals leadership. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that inspires. The kind that makes people feel safe enough to follow. Stoicism teaches that leadership begins with leading yourself. You don't manage others before mastering your impulses. You don't demand loyalty before showing integrity. True leaders build themselves so fully that their presence becomes a standard others rise to meet. And here's the paradox. The most magnetic leaders aren't trying to lead. They're too busy living by example. Their lives are their message. Their consistency is their power. And their confidence doesn't shout, it invites. In relationships, charismatic leadership doesn't mean controlling the narrative. It means being a man of direction. a man who knows where he's going and invites his partner into that journey, not as a follower, but as a co-architect. When you lead with character, you don't need to convince. When you lead with clarity, you don't need to compete. And when you lead with purpose, you'll find that the right people, the ones who value real depth, will follow not because they have to, but because they want to. So if you want to cultivate charisma, start within. Become the kind of man who honors his word, holds his ground, and walks through the world as if every step matters, because it does. And that kind of leadership, that leaves a legacy. Part 10. Emotional intelligence. In the symphony of human connection, emotional intelligence is the melody that keeps everything in harmony. It's more than just knowing how you feel, it's knowing how your presence affects others. It's the art of reading a room, holding space, and choosing your tone with care. A man with emotional intelligence doesn't react impulsively. He pauses, he considers, he listens not just to words, but to energy. And when he speaks, his words carry weight, not because they're loud, but because they're rooted in awareness. Women are incredibly responsive to this. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. When you respond instead of react, when you ask instead of assume, when you attune instead of control, it's noticed, and it's rare. Emotional intelligence turns tension into understanding. It transforms disagreement into dialogue. It doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means approaching conflict with curiosity rather than ego. It means seeking connection over being right. From a Stoic lens, this is the ultimate expression of self-control. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Emotional intelligence is self-mastery in motion, a quiet, dignified strength that makes others feel seen, not managed. In love, emotional intelligence isn't about fixing her emotions, it's about being present with them, holding space without rushing to a solution, allowing her to express without fear of dismissal. That's how trust is built, not by doing everything right, but by staying emotionally available when things feel wrong. So cultivate this skill, practice empathy, reflect before speaking, learn the language of emotion without making it about you. Because when you become a man who understands feelings, both yours and hers, you become a man who builds safety. And safety? That's what allows love to grow roots, not just wings. Part 11. Passionate interests. There's something irresistibly magnetic about a man who's in love with life. A man who lights up when he talks about his craft, his dreams, or that one book that changed how he sees the world. Passion isn't just a personal pursuit. It's an energy that breathes life into every interaction. When you speak about something you care deeply about, your eyes shift, your tone changes, your presence becomes alive, and in those moments, others feel it, especially her. Because passion isn't about impressing someone, it's about inviting them into a world that's already vibrant. From a psychological standpoint, people are drawn to vitality. They want to be close to those who radiate enthusiasm. Women, in particular, feel safe and inspired around men who pursue life with intention. Passion signals stability, creativity, and emotional richness. Stoicism reminds us that our time is finite, and to waste it on numb routines is a betrayal of the gift of life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit. Instead, focus on what fuels you. Dive deep, create, explore, build." A man without passion is like a song without melody. He might go through the motions, but he won't leave a lasting imprint. But a man who carves time for his interests, even quietly, carries an inner fire that others can feel. Passion also serves another purpose. It gives you balance. When relationships become complex or stressful, your personal interests anchor you. They remind you that your joy doesn't depend on someone else's approval. You're already full, already lit from within. And here's the beauty. Passion is contagious. When she sees you pursuing your goals with heart, she's reminded of her own dreams. You become a mirror that reflects what's possible when someone chooses meaning over mediocrity. So don't downplay your interests. Don't shrink your excitement to seem more acceptable. Whether it's art, fitness, music, philosophy, or building something from scratch, own it. That boldness isn't just admirable. In a world where many settle for distraction, be the man who chooses devotion, because the man who's in love with life, he's the one she can truly fall for. Part 12, Becoming Irresistible, the final connection. Attraction isn't just a game of tactics. It's the natural result of becoming a man who lives in alignment. A man who knows his worth, owns his story, and walks through life with quiet confidence. When all the traits we've explored, detachment, ambition, confidence, passion, converge into one identity, something powerful happens. You become undeniable. This isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole, about accepting your flaws while refining your strengths. Women don't seek perfection, they seek authenticity. They crave a man who is consistent, who shows up for himself first, and who lives his truth even when no one is watching. The final connection isn't made by being everything to everyone. It's forged by being someone specific, someone clear, someone rooted. When you stop chasing and start radiating, the right ones find you, not by accident, but by resonance. From a Stoic perspective, this is the ultimate victory. To need less from others because you've cultivated fullness within. To approach relationships not from hunger but from generosity, because a man who doesn't need approval becomes a magnet for deep connection. So don't rush the journey. Let each insight sink into your being. Let each practice shape the man you're becoming. And remember, when you prioritize inner alignment, the external begins to align too. This is how you become irresistible, not by performance, but by presence. Not by trying to be liked, but by becoming a man who is already whole. And when you reach that place, love won't feel like a chase. It'll feel like a meeting. One heart recognizing another. One path aligning with hers. One connection, grounded in truth, forged in stillness, and built to last. If this journey stirred something in you, a reminder of who you are and who you're becoming, then this space was made for you. The Chill Stoic isn't just a podcast, it's a movement toward clarity, strength, and deep connection. We're not here to impress, we're here to awaken, to reclaim the grounded, powerful presence that already lives inside you. If this message resonates, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more reflections like this and leave a review to help others discover what it means to live with purpose and peace. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay steady, stay strong, and walk gently through the fire.